I'm Amy Dolan, and this is the Feeding People podcast. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Feeding People. I'm Amy Dolan, your host, and I'm so thankful you're here for another night at the table. We appreciate you listening to our show and coming back every single week to hear our guests and hear our conversation around food and gathering people, and I'm really, really thankful you keep coming back. If you haven't yet, go to Apple Podcasts and subscribe to our show, rate our show, review our show. It would mean so much to us as we're launching and really getting the show started. Thank you to all of you who have already done that. It's been so much fun to see what you've had to say, and I'm grateful. So thanks. We're here tonight at the table once again with a fabulous guest. I'm so grateful my friend Darren Calhoun is at the table tonight. Welcome, Darren.
Hey, it's good to be here.
We have known each other a little bit.
Yeah.
I think that we went to the same church together. We did.
We definitely did.
I remember just loving you from the minute that I met you. It was just something about your whole persona, your whole energy, everything about you was just like so magnetic. I bet everyone says that about you, right?
Well, I appreciate it every time.
Okay. Oh my gosh, I love it.
Team extrovert,
Team extrovert.
We make friends everywhere.
We're just like ray of sunshine everywhere we go.
Absolutely.
Right? Well, we've known each other for years, and I'm so thankful you're here tonight. I admire you, I respect you, and I'm really grateful for this conversation. And we're going to talk about some really great things tonight. Would you introduce yourself? How would you describe the fabulous Darren Calhoun?
Sure. Thank you. I'm really, really glad to be here. And I describe myself in a few ways. One, first and foremost, I am from Chicago, born and raised on the South Side, currently living on the West Side in East Garfield Park. Chicago is home. I get to go a lot of places around the country. And other than our winters, there's just no place like Chicago.
No place like Chicago.
But if we could do something about these winters.
And we're just getting started, Darren. Like, how are we going to live through this?
Yeah, I'm not sure what to do with that. And I'm not, I think global warming is definitely a thing. I don't know what the happy balance is, but Chicago is definitely home. So love Chicago. And then what I do here is I work as an artist. I'm a photographer. I've been doing that for about 15 years with families and nonprofits in the area, just documenting and telling the story of what they're doing, as well as that's actually how I got into advocacy. And so currently what I do is racial justice and LGBTQ inclusion in churches, because I like to pick really easy topics.
The ones everyone agrees on.
The ones everyone agrees on. Everyone's ready to come to the table with open hearts and clear minds and just love each other. But these are topics that are near and dear to my heart. As a Black man, as an LGBTQ person, being able to have these conversations in really a wide array of spaces has been something that's really important to me. Because I feel like when we bring our whole selves to the table, then the table gets richer. It expands. It's fuller.
Yes.
But, a lot of times people tell us to leave certain bits at home. And I'm like, nope, I'm not going to do that. And I'm going to make space for others with the advocacy that I do.
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
You're such a beautiful person. And I love that description of who you are. And I love that you're from Chicago, the best city in the world.
I love
it. So tonight we ate spaghetti with my homemade sauce. And I'm so glad, actually, that I got your meal right, because there's a lot of things you don't like.
Yes.
Right?
That is absolutely the case.
And you sent me a list, which I appreciate. Like when you are hosting and making a meal for someone, that's what you want to know, right? Because when they come in and you're like, here's the food, and I don't like any of that. What could be worse than that?
Exactly.
Right? So people, tell your host if they ask what you like and what you don't like, right?
Yeah, it's a tiny form of advocacy.
I love it.
We have to speak up, but it makes it so that we can all enjoy the meal together.
That's right. So you are on the side of hating cilantro.
Yes, I was born with the gift of being able to taste what's wrong with cilantro. Now, some people disagree with me on that.
I disagree with you. Cilantro, I really don't know what's better than cilantro, actually.
Everything, actually.
How do you, like, when you eat a taco, this is a real question. Like, when you eat a taco, does it have flavor?
Yes.
Okay.
I have a thing called a tongue, and it has taste buds, and I can actually taste everything. And I mean, that's the funny thing. Like, the thing with not being able to like cilantro is specifically that you can taste a certain chemical in it.
Oh.
And so in you being able to taste that chemical, it goes from it being what I've heard people describe as light and refreshing to it being like this very soapy experience. And so I just say that my taste buds have evolved in ways that some people's haven't, and we love you all the same. But yeah, I like a lot of things, but that taste is not one.
That's not one of them.
I'm not down with it.
That is now I see why you say it's a gift, because you can see something others can't.
I can.
Right?
I can.
Okay. All right. We'll leave it there. But loving cilantro is the right way to live your life. We'll leave it there.
That's what some people say.
All right. So tonight we're going to talk about food and feeding people and food justice a little bit. And I'm just so glad, of course, that it's you and you're here and we're going to have this conversation. So feeding people, of course, is about the magic of the table. And I love how you said it, like bringing our full selves to the table.
Yes.
Right? Those are the best kinds of table. When any of us leave parts of ourselves at home, right? It's no good. It's no good. There's reasons why we do it, but the best conversations, the most meaningful experiences happen when each person brings their full selves to the table. So we're going to talk about that tonight. So let's start. I love, love, love hearing how and what food was like for people growing up, because everyone's got some kind of story or experience about what it was like in their family. So tell us, Darren, what was food like growing up in your family?
Yeah, I have some interesting little ways that shows up. My mom, who's like my number one fan. Hey, Mom.
Hey, Mom.
She was, and I found out this is unusual. My mom really liked, like, if I was an only child, but I had lots of cousins. And if 7 cousins came over and we all wanted different meals, Mom was like, oh, let's play restaurant. And we're going to like take down all the different orders and make 7 different meals. And I was like, what do you mean that wasn't normal?
Wow.
What do you mean everyone didn't grow up with that? And so for me, I was always able to choose like what did I want to eat and what things I was okay with and what things I wasn't okay with. I mean, she always had a mind toward nutrition and having enough nutritional value, but I had a lot of room for choice growing up, and I didn't know that was something that lots of people didn't have. And so for me, I would, decline things. I'd say no, thank you, and I'd go to my extended family's house and my relatives' house, and they'd look like you just stabbed them in the chest with a knife by declining their, whatever the food was. And it was like, I don't eat that, and I was like, why is everyone so upset? But apparently that's a cultural value, especially in the South, where you always accept food that is offered to you.
Yes.
And I'm like, oh, well, I wasn't trying to be rude. I eat certain things and I don't eat other things. What do I say about that?
Yeah, this is great. I think this is such a cool thing for parents to hear, right? Because I think we often do think like, I think parents think you have to like force your kids to eat things and try things and like things, right? Which is really good and all that. But also you should like nurture the enjoyment of food in your children. And that means giving them choices and letting them say, well, I really like this and I don't like that. That's a really good thing. What a great thing your mom did for you.
Yeah, that was really wonderful. And it also developed early on a sense of I have choice. I have autonomy. Like I can like things and not like things. And I think that helps us, it prepares us for being adults in the world who have to make choices, so I really do appreciate that.
That's great. And you told me what you liked and what you didn't like tonight. And I think that's great. Like we so often just go into situations just saying like, whatever, right? Whatever.
Right.
I'll do my best to just not make a scene or,
right.
Say what I need or what I like. And
yeah. And, now now we hear more and more about people who have gluten intolerance, or we have people who are making lifestyle choices about what kind of food that they won't eat for various reasons. And it becomes this thing where we almost make it like, oh, this is such a burden and this is such a heavy thing. I have several friends who, you know, if they have something that has gluten in it, they're going to feel it for the next few days. But because they don't want to be an inconvenience and because they don't want to burden other people, they'll pull back and they won't share it, and they'll just kind of find something that they can trust, or they'll have food hidden in their bag. And it's just like it rises up the advocate in me, and so I speak up and I'm like, oh, do we have anything, or you know, I'll try to be the one to show up for them, because after a while you get tired of having to say over and over and over again and explain things. But for me, it's not so much of a problem, so I don't mind doing it. But I think it'd be neat if more people were proactive about making sure that if you know your friend's gluten intolerant, you know, try to ask before they have to speak up for themselves.
Yes.
Or if you know your friend doesn't eat meat, or maybe is avoiding carbs that week, you know, whatever it is, how can we come alongside our friends and just be supportive? I think that's super.
I love that. I think it's so important to, you know, when you sit down at a table and you're all eating the same food, there's magic in that, right? Because you can talk about the tastes and the flavors, and you're having an experience with the same food. And those people with allergies or preferences, like, are constantly having to eat different food, or be, you know, careful about how they're moving their food around and that kind of thing. And you know, Kelly has a dairy allergy, and so I would watch him at so many parties, quietly try to scrape the cheese off the pizza.
Right.
And I just thought, what would it be like if Kelly always was eating the same food at the table as other people?
Yeah.
I think that's such a nice consideration to ask and to know, and to then make one meal that everyone can eat.
Exactly.
Anything else about food and growing up and your fabulous mom?
Well, the flip side of me having a lot of choice meant that there were things I didn't try until I was later in life. For example, I didn't eat salad dressing probably until I was in my 20s.
Stop it. You're lying.
Like, I'm giving away all of my two truths and one lie situations. But I didn't eat cheese on things. Like, if it was on pizza, fine. If it was melted already, but to just put cheese on a sandwich, oh no.
No.
There were lots of little quirks that I had like that, where things had to be separate for a long time. Or it's still to this day, I can name people who got me to try new foods, you being one of them. But yeah, it's just one of those things where I'm like, the joke I have is I can never leave the country because I won't know how to eat. But I am becoming more brave as I reach up there in years. And as I'm starting to learn what things I like, it lets me know where I can explore. But it's been a long time coming. But yeah, I just try to honor it as okay, I know what I like, I know what I don't like, and that's okay. Yes,
I love that. I love that, Darren. So good. So tell me, what does food mean to you today? Like, when you go out to eat, or you gather and you have a beautiful meal, like what? Or just the everyday peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Like, I
love peanut butter and jelly.
I made one yesterday, and I was like, why do I not do this more often?
I do it daily, seriously.
Yes. So good.
Yeah. Like, I hate the part where I have to eat every day. I'll forget to eat. That's just the way I'm wired. So when I get a headache, it's like, oh, when's the last time you ate, Darren? Getting past all of that, the part that I do like about eating is the part where we do come together.
Yeah.
And what I've been observing in recent years is I've gone to different people's places, and even as my band, as we travel, and people want to feed us. That's like a really important thing for some folks. I'm seeing there's this gift of hospitality, and that's not just this thing of, oh, you like to help at the church banquet, but there's a special way that some people are equipped to make space for people and to nourish people and to provide for people. And I'm like, this is really awesome. And so whether or not I feel like eating, I appreciate that part where I am invited to people's table and where they do want to take care of me. I'm like, that's special. Like, you want to actually make sure I'm alive and happy and fed. Like, those things those things kind of stand out to me. And so for me now, food is more about the relationships that happen as we gather regularly. My band's called The Many, and they are really like my core. We do life together in some really important ways. But part of the value of the band is that we actually eat together. And so almost every rehearsal, we will at least have some meal together. And that's just where we talk about life and we talk about things that are going on. And it's where I get more aware of what my friends who have allergies and restrictions, what they do and don't eat. Or where, we share what's going on in our lives. And I just find that happens around a table where you're eating and you're sharing a meal together much more often than it does when you say, how are you doing? Like it becomes another level, if you will, when we do eat together regularly.
Yes. Well, you're preaching to the choir.
I know, right?
Yes. Absolutely. I have nothing, of course. Speechless. Same. Ditto.
Yeah. And I love what you're doing. I love every time I've mentioned Sunday Supper Church and this idea of dinner church to people, you see their eyes light up, because lots of folks have been doing church for years and it's just become this rote memory of things that you're supposed to do on Sunday. And so what I'm loving is that for many people, this invitation to a table, this idea of making the celebration of communion an actual meal. I'm loving that renewal, if you will, of what communion is and what community is. They share roots.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for that. I appreciate those kind words so much. You have been such a encouragement to me about Sunday Supper Church, and I know you tell other people about it, and I'm really grateful. Thank you for that.
Cool.
And, it's just like, it's exactly what you said. When you come to the table and you eat a meal with your band, that's where the real life happens, right? So we just decided at some point it felt like church. We're going to call it church.
Yeah.
Right? That's what we're going to do. So
love it.
You're right. So let's talk for a minute about food and justice, because I absolutely love the advocate that you are. I love the justice fighter that you are. I'm always looking to Facebook to know what protest I should be involved in, what march I should do, what I should tell the mayor, because I always want to talk to the mayor. You got to follow Darren Calhoun on Facebook. He will guide you in helping you know.
I'm just sharing what I find.
And I love it. Thank you. You are the way that you engage people in the fight for justice online is amazing.
Appreciate that.
I want to talk for a minute about food justice specifically. And, I think that there is so much power and love in food that, of course, it has gone wrong. And it's gone so wrong for people of color and people without money. And I think the depth to which it's gone wrong shows how much power and beauty and love, right, is found in food. And so my eyes just recently have been open to the injustices connected to food and the way that even the best food pantries who are trying to help people get food, sometimes are taken over by corporations and mixed motives and things like that. Sarah Miles' book, Take This Bread, really opened my eyes to the way that sometimes corporations try to test junk food at food pantries in order to figure out what people without money will want. And the Racist Sandwich podcast. Have you heard that podcast?
I have not.
Oh, you got to listen.
Wow.
The Racist Sandwich. They talk about how often people who can't afford food and go to food pantries, we've taken away their choice.
Yes.
You talked about that, how important it is for people to have choice in their food, right? And so often when people go to food pantries, we tell them exactly what they have to eat, and it has to be healthy. Like, they're not actually capable humans who know what they like and don't like and want to eat. If they want to eat junk food, eat junk food. I want to eat junk food. How come I get that choice and others don't, right? Okay, I'm going on now. But I want to talk for a minute about food justice and thoughts you have about the ways that you've seen food be used unfairly for people.
Yeah. And this gets into so many levels because, one of the things that we're thinking about is this is what's essential for us to live.
Yes.
And as soon as we're born, we need to be fed. And so this is something that's very core to just how we feel okay in the world. And so it's not just about, oh, I like to have certain options or I like certain flavors. This is literally how we exist. And so when it comes to us policing that and us restricting it, or how we even get it, it unpacks into all these interesting things. For me, I first started noticing, for example, when people talk about what a healthy diet looks when you're poor or on a budget. You'll see these videos of people shopping and saying, oh, I can survive for 7 days on $5. And they'll, make these choices and like, see, it's all healthy, it's all this. And the reality is that there are quote unquote poor food choices that are high calorie, that are sustainable, that give people the kind of energy they need to work the 2 and 3 jobs that they have. But because we're looking at this through very limited lenses, we're not seeing that whole picture. We're just looking at what's in their cart and doing legislation about, oh, well, you're poor, so you don't need lobster, or you're poor, so you don't need to buy, this high calorie sugary drink. And it's like, but you're not making sure people have the calories that they need to do the jobs that they're doing when you don't look at this. And then another part of this, and I hadn't really considered this, is how do we get our food? When we look at the food that's being grown in our country, some of the healthier food is being grown by brown and black people who are being underpaid for the labor that they do. And in this same environment where we're enjoying our healthy kale and our healthy almonds, but the almonds are using up all this exorbitant amounts of water, we're also having the people who are spending this back-breaking labor harvesting these foods being deported. We have people who are just here to do the jobs that no one else is taking. And I say no one else is taking these jobs because after the people get deported, the food rots on the vines. There's not a line of people out there, I'm taking my job back. No. Mm-hmm. Companies are literally experiencing shortages of certain foods because of the impact of the injustice of us drawing up these ideas about what immigrants are doing in our country. It's like they're working and they're feeding themselves and they're feeding us. And we're enjoying the fruits of their labor while we're not protecting the very people who make sure that we have food on our table and that we have easily accessible items that are to our picking. And then the last piece that always gets me, and this kind of informs how I try to think about myself in the world, we throw away enough food every year to end world hunger. Like without us getting rid of any of our individual proclivities, we literally throw away enough food to make sure everybody's fed in the world.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
It's beyond my comprehension. But I get it because our system is capitalistic and our system's about making money more than it is about making sure humans survive. And so because we, especially as people who are in the U.S., because we don't see the impacts of capitalism as clearly, we're like, oh, this is just normal life. Whereas other people are risking their lives to be able to participate in this system, whether that's, again, the backbreaking labor, whether that's being in harsh conditions, whether it's working for unfair employers or poverty wages. They're doing all this so that they can live too. And it's just like, so for me, I'm like, what does that mean? Because obviously I'm not going to like go out and start my own garden for me because that's not something I'm strong or gifted at.
Well, it would only be cilantro.
Right. I'm going to start a cilantro garden. No, but it does mean that I should be learning and figuring out what are the changes that I can make. What are the ways that I can contribute to how to make our world better for everybody in it. Because I can't save the world, but I can change the way that I shop and try to inform the ways that I vote and the public leaders that I engage and try to get us at least moving in the right direction.
Yes. Darren, oh my gosh, you're brilliant. Yes, to all of those things, of course. And we're just touching the surface, right? There's so much to it. But I love what you said about the way that there really is injustice towards people, not only who don't have the money for food, but who work for the food, who make for the food, who get us food, right? All of that. And so what would you say is a great first step for someone who's maybe just hearing some of these things for the first time and wants to be more mindful about their food, their choices, where food comes from?
Yeah, it's funny. I really wish I had a list of blogs handy, and we can probably put some in the
Absolutely.
show notes.
Yes.
But, reading books and getting to know what the system is, I think so much of the injustice in our world is built on systems. If we get to know how food is produced, if we get to know how it gets delivered, if we get to know what's allowed in and what's not allowed, then we can see the parts that resonate with us. Because for me, I tend to look at things as systems. I look at how they work and how they keep going. And then I figure out what's the part that I have the most access to. And so maybe that means that I have a conversation with my grocery store that I love to shop at about carrying more local produce. Maybe that means that if there is a community garden going up in my neighborhood, that I do something to support it. It might look different for different people. But yeah, if we learn more about what's going on, I think that's what'll lead us very naturally to, oh, there is a farmer's market in my neighborhood. I could totally go support that, and it wouldn't completely change my world to do that one next step.
Right, exactly. I love that. It's easy enough. It's simple enough. The first step always is becoming mindful and learning the systems. I love how you said that, because everything is built on the system. Yeah. Like you said. So I can make one change and hopefully disrupt the system or tweak the system in my little neighborhood.
Yeah.
Right?
Or just getting to know other people who are making changes and not just make them the butt of a joke.
Yes. Right, exactly. I want to ask you, how do you feed people today in your life, in work, in your family? You ever cook for your mom?
So I don't have the gift of cooking at this point. I just recently figured out how to make eggs that I actually like. Okay, good. I haven't decided to make those for anyone else yet because I'm a little insecure about my cooking skills. And it's so funny. Most of the people in my life are chefs or have their own restaurants or, have food blogs. And
you have no need to cook.
I don't. I really don't. And so it's a little embarrassing at 39 to be like still finding my way around the kitchen. But, YouTube is such a help.
Yes.
But I've been thinking of this in a little bit more of a big picture way or maybe even an abstract way. When it comes to feeding people, I do think about what are the spaces that I create, what are the spaces that I invite people into. And so one of the things that I do is I'm a worship leader at my church. It's here in Chicago, and it's a church that often attracts people who have been burned by church. And so at our church, we celebrate communion every Sunday. But before people get to communion, they've had a range of experiences, and that you might consider that hospitality. Everything from how you welcome people through the door to what kind of bread is on the table. Yes, I've been doing a lot of thinking about maybe we should all just really have gluten-free bread as our communion element, so that everybody, or at least more people, are able to access that without having to ask a bunch of questions.
Side note, my friends go to your church, and they actually told me last week that they had challah at your church for communion for Hanukkah. Yeah. And I absolutely loved that they told me what bread they had for communion at your church. I mean, could you imagine if everyone actually did that? Like they were actually excited about the bread that they ate.
Yes. I'm shout out to Urban Village Church here in Chicago. I absolutely love the ways that people are showing up, and they're bringing their whole selves. But there's a church in North Carolina that had this gluten-free bread. It was a brown bread that was the best bread ever, and it even held together when we did intinction, where you dip it into the wine.
Impossible.
It even held together for intinction. It was like, this is wonderful. And,
Let us be known by our bread.
Right.
Let's do that, church. Come on.
Let's do that.
Let us be known for our bread.
You know? But yeah, I enjoy the process of creating ritual. And for my friends who do cook and they love to design the flow of a meal, and they pick what it's going to start with and how you're going to get into it and then what the finish will be. While I don't have that gift to do it with food, I do the same thing, I would say, with how we create worship experiences. So whether that's in my band or whether that's in a Sunday morning experience at church, I use those same kind of ideas of ritual and welcome and flow into when people walk away, what should they walk away with? And so I've been enjoying that, being rather intentional about that.
I love that. Yeah, creating space for people to gather and to feel safe and brave and themselves is totally your gift. I've experienced that and seen that 100 times.
Well,
and so I'm thankful that's the way that you feed people and the way that you gather people. It's really lovely. Okay, I wanted to mention quickly, so you mentioned your band, The Many, which is fantastic. I love your band. Y'all came to Sunday Supper Church once.
Yes.
I think you sang Communion,
Yes.
which was amazing. Let's do that again. And then I know also you're involved with Evangelicals for Social Action, which is great. Will you just say a little bit about Creature Kind?
Yes. So shout out to Sarah Withrow King. Creature Kind is this organization within Evangelicals for Social Action that is working to advocate for the care of animals from a Christian perspective. And so for many people that looks differently. For some that means they're committed to veganism and they're making sure that they eliminate animal products and animal labor from their food. But it also looks like everyday choices. One of the efforts that's going on right now is to advocate for universities and seminaries across the country to do meatless Fridays as a normal thing, not just a part of Lent.
I love that.
Just to cut down a little bit. And people, it's so funny. People don't even notice it all the time. They're just enjoying really good food. But because we've created this idea that you have to have meat as part of every meal, it creates that expectation.
Yes.
But another interesting idea that Creature Kind has been sharing is, what if instead of people who are signing up for a dinner, what if instead of them choosing which kind of meat that they have as a protein, what if they had to opt into having meat as a protein, that by default the dinner was going to be a meatless dinner? But if that's what you need, which is fine,
sure, or
if that's something that you personally prefer or require, then opt into it. Instead of having to I'm a vegetarian and I need this and blah, blah, blah. Let's see if we can just change the dynamic. It's healthier for our environment. It's often healthier for the majority of people who are consuming it. Why not change the way that we do quote unquote normal in a way that protects animals and a way that honors people?
Yes.
It's great.
Yes, I love that. The opt-in, meat opt-in is such a great idea.
Right.
It's such a great idea because we really can get our protein from a million different places.
Exactly.
And to not just assume meat would be fantastic, right?
Right.
Do you know that's the number one way that you can help save the environment is to eat less meat?
Right.
We're eating so much meat, and the production of the meat actually is what's so harmful to the environment. And so, hey, everyone, if you want to save the planet a little bit this weekend, eat less meat.
Just have one less meal with meat in it. That can be your personal practice. That can be what you do with the group.
Yeah.
We've started for some of the other groups that we have. If there's a meal, we commit to having at least one of those meals, or maybe all the meals if it's a part of a weekend, as meatless meals. And again, you're enjoying some Indian food, or you're enjoying some Ethiopian food, and you're just like, oh, this is so good and so rich. And it completely goes by.
Right.
That you haven't been chowing down on chickens and cows all weekend.
Right. You don't even notice.
Right.
Well, that's great. We'll put a link to that in the show notes for sure. Check out the Evangelicals for Social Action and Creature Kind. I'm going to. It sounds fantastic.
Yeah.
All right, so let's do a quick lightning round.
Cool.
Chicago style.
Chicago.
I just love you so much, Darren. This has been so much fun.
It's always good to see you.
Sit here at the table with you all night. But let's get to the best meal that you have ever had.
Best meal probably was at Hub 51.
Oh, sure.
Which is this, it was a brunch and it was a buffet of all kinds of things. And full disclosure, I had to ask my best friend Darius to be like, what's that and what's that? And we went through the menu before I even went because I don't know a lot of the food stuff. But it was just this really rich meal of endless amounts of food, and it was definitely excess. But it was so good, and it was also really good because I was there with my team.
Yeah.
My worship team at the time all went together, and so that combination of really good food options on top of really good company, unbeatable.
Unbeatable. It really is. Is this a love language, actually? Like a great restaurant with great people and great food?
We're going to add it.
Let's add it.
Yes.
It's mine.
There you go.
All right. So where must people eat, Mr. Chicago? Where must people eat when they come to town?
This is probably going to be the most controversial thing I share today. I am a huge Giordano's deep dish stuffed pizza fan, like all day long. And people fight tooth and nail about which Chicago deep dish pizza is the best. And they're wrong, but
So make your claim. What is it about Giordano's?
I love it. Like people disparagingly say Giordano's pizza is a casserole.
Oh, casseroles are awesome, though. Let's not diss on casseroles.
What's wrong with that? Casserole pizza is great. But I love that crust. It's not like I don't, complete dish to New York pizza. I don't like the cracker crust.
Yes.
I like a really rich crust. And it's a crust that I enjoy. Like some people like Lou Malnati's, and I'm like, oh, they're like the butter crust, and I'm like, I don't care. I like the cheese, I like the sauce, I like almost everything that they put in it, whether that's if it is chicken or if it's spinach or if it's just cheese, and it's so good on the second day.
That's true. That's true.
Good. And it's the biggest. You have to eat it with a knife and a fork. It's huge. It's really, really, really yummy.
Darren, I need some Giordano's right now. It's so bad. Oh my gosh. All I can picture is the cheese.
Right? And then, the
stretching.
cheese, it just stretches and
so
does the whole 9 yards. It's great.
All right. Giordano's, come to Chicago.
Yes.
Darren's going to take you out.
Absolutely. We will go to Giordano's. And it's 45 minutes to get the pizza baked. So we'll have lots of conversation.
Lots of conversation. A lot of time at the table. This has been so much fun, Darren. I just love your perspective. I love what you're doing with your life, all the things you're involved in, and I could sit here talking to you all night. We can't do that, unfortunately. So
Not tonight.
Let's finish up. Will you just give us a parting piece of guidance for people as they're thinking about food and gathering people, showing up as themselves, as they're thinking about food justice, anything? Like what would you say to people who are thinking about how to better feed people? Yes.
On a practical sense, it means so much to me when people just ask me what kind of things I eat and don't eat. There's often times where I just feel a certain sense of guilt about not, necessarily liking everything. But when people are willing to gleefully do that, it invites me in. And so for me, if we could do that more, there's so many people who are quietly struggling or quietly not eating, which means they often withdraw from the table. They withdraw from the whole experience. And I would love to see if that became a value, that people just were a lot more invitational about, what do you need? What do you not need? And for me, that's an extension of this value of making space for others, whether it's a dinner table, whether it's a church table, whether it's a boardroom. Like, we really do have to include more people at the table. And so in whatever ways that looks like, whatever ways, if you are a part of setting a table, if you are on a board for an organization, if you are leading a classroom of students, if you are preparing a meal for your neighborhood, think about who's not there. Think about who needs to be represented, whether that's along the lines of gender or race or a sexual minority, or whether that's somebody who you just don't know very well. There's room for us to make room for others. And, my band has a song that is it's created as a communion song, but it really does say that there's room for us all. And so for us to be the kind of people that take this value of the table, this value of what Jesus did. Jesus had room at his table for even those who would betray him. And so for us to figure out what does that look like in our own lives, to make room for this misfit gang of folks to come, to be fed, and that when they get up from this table, they literally change the world. You know, that's the kind of community that I want to be a part of building. Those are the kind of tables that I want to sit at. So.
Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Darren. That was so lovely. Thanks so much for being here tonight.
Thanks for having me. Great food.